Hey guys, so thanks for joining this lecture. And before diving into more details that concern TypeScript itself, I thought it's good to start with a little bit of inspiration. It's cool to create a 3D text, of course, like a hello world that you saw in the previous example, but it's also sometimes good to just know that the same approach can be applied to create more complex things. And we have some baked in models in Bit by Bit that are available to our subscribers, which I will show how to create in this TypeScript editor as well. The idea is that, of course, this platform is free to use, and all the basic algorithms, sort of building blocks that you can compose together to create intricate and complex geometries, those are free to use for you. But more complex geometries like finished models, those are behind the subscription. So consider, of course, subscribing, which helps me a lot in developing this platform further. And yeah, so when you become a subscriber, you can use those configurators directly. I have them here open, so I will just demonstrate that really briefly. So you can go into 3D models, you can go into 3D printing, and you have here some vases. You see that this one that we'll be creating is behind the gold subscription. So basically, if you subscribe for our gold plan, you get access to this algorithm, and either you go directly and use this configurator like this. So basically, you can just adapt some options here immediately. But also, these same algorithms are accessible to our TypeScript and Blockly and Read editors. So this is what we will do in this video. I'll show you how you can, instead of using these configurators that are pretty nice, you can just use the same code inside the TypeScript and create more complex things by just typing few things that you already did almost. So let's get started. Let's just do the things that we already know that work. Let's create this asynchronous context function, the boilerplate that we called before. So here is the definition, of course, and here we call it. And now, instead of creating this 3D text, we will be doing something similar. So let's do this constant and call it vase. And I guess you see where I'm going with it. So let's go to bit by bit dot things dot 3D printing dot vases, and let's create this Arabic archway, and let's just do create. There's a lot of typing here, but because we're in this editor, it's pretty nice to have it hanging on some single variable. You can always, like, instead of to make it shorter, those paths, you can always say, yeah, okay, you know, I'm gonna reuse this a lot, so I'm just gonna call this vases, and then what you can do is just, instead of typing this whole path, shorten it up like that. And if all is working, you can just continue the way you did before. So now we can say constant vase options is new, and let's pass those here. And if you remember from the previous lecture, we did draw the things on the screen. This is what we are going to do now, and we'll just pass the entity called vase directly into this draw any async option. What you can do is, of course, you can also use these other things like we did with vase options. So you can say draw options, and then you can instantiate this, but then you will need to do the entity assignment like that. And that's perfectly fine. Draw options is here. So this is the same, but you see that I typed quite a bit of code here to do this. Sometimes it's very handy to have these options, especially when you have a long list of properties. So like vase options has quite a bit of properties, of course, like base height. And if you would need to define all of those, that would take some time. And vase options object is now just created with some defaults that we can use. Anyway, just some explanation on how TypeScript works. But this is basically the same as we did the previous time, except for the fact that we are now creating the vase object and not the text object. So let's hit run and see what we get. Yeah, so we just got instantly, by typing those few lines of code, a nice looking 3D printable model. And what we can do is configure those options here and change whatever we want to make this vase look different. So what we can do is we can increase the number of sides, for example. So now I don't know exactly how many there are. I'll do something like 15 maybe. And I'll also increase the thickness itself, for example, to 2. Let's do the assignment and let's click run. So now it takes a bit longer to compute, but you see that the vase has changed its geometry. You see that there are more sides to it, and what it does, it also just adapts the how the vase looks like. So this is quite cool to be able to do directly from the TypeScript. Another things that we can look into is even more complex objects, like for example, let's get that back. So let's put this like that. We can create things like a house, for example. So let's do that. A house is await bit by bit things, architecture, houses, and hideouts, create. And let's do this like that. House options is this. It has to be a new object. And let's pass those options in. So now let's do this. Let's just bring old memories here. So let's do this. This is just much simpler. And let's hit play. So let's run this code. And now you see that we created a small little house object here. This is super simple and it's all parametric, which means that you can change whatever you want. So for example, the roof angle through those options can be changed. So let's do this like 45 degrees. So this will be steeper. And you see now the whole roof is on 45 degrees and this roof has adapted. And we can make the house longer, for example, by doing this. Length, first wing, let's do it like 30 or something. Let's hit play. This will take a bit to compute. But you see now that the house became super long. And it doesn't look maybe very good, but it is parametric and you can adapt it the way you want. So this is a bit of inspiration in the sense that you see that bit by bit allows you to create those 3D models with just a few lines of code. It makes it possible to create super complex objects and it performs really well on the browser. So this is quite cool. And like, for example, that 3D vase, you can, of course, export that model to STL, import it to Cura, 3D print it, do whatever you want with it. So yeah, just consider subscribing, you know. This is the only thing that I'm gonna say. But there are also some free models that we provide. So this is what I'm gonna create now. So it's also a things category, and it's kids corner, and we have some birdhouses that I'm quite fond of. So this is quite a nice setup to do. So let's call it birdhouse, and let's do the birdhouse options here. So let's see what kind of options object it wants to get. Yeah, so we did it wrong. Let's do the create, and it says that it expects this DTO as options. So let's do this, and let's do birdhouse options like that. So this is again the same 3 lines, right? We have this house in the background still. Now let's hit play, and now instead of a house, we've got this little birdhouse, and this is also quite nice. And this you can also try without a subscription. You see that I'm in this gold subscription, so you will not be able to run the code to create the vase. You will get the error, but doing this is fine. So just copy paste this code into your editor, and you'll be able to experiment with the birdhouse. Basically, you can also say birdhouse options. Yeah, all the parameters that you can think of are here. So thickness, for example, let's change that to something like 3. Let's hit run, and you see that it's now using super thick wood. It's probably in decimeters, this model, so let's bring it back a little, like 1. And now you see that it uses this quite a thick wood. And you can also change the roof angle. So let's do this like 45 or something. It's in degrees, of course. So you see here that it created that. And if you want, of course, it's possible to create a second birdhouse that is just a little bit different from the first one. So I'll just call that. So I do F2, that renames all the constant names that are related. So these 2 now is birdhouse 1, and this is birdhouse 2. But for birdhouse 2, I will use the same options, but I will do the roof angle that is something like 20 maybe. I will do the birdhouse options that has a thickness of 0.5 or 4, and I will do the birdhouse options that has, let's see, height or something, interior height of, yeah, I'm not exactly sure, maybe 10 or something, so that it's different. So now we have those 2 birdhouses, but they will be in one location, and we need to then update the origin to be in, yeah, let's do 10, 0, 0. So this will create another birdhouse in another location, and let's draw it. So let's run now this code, and you see that we have 2 birdhouses created next to each other, but in a single environment. This makes it quite powerful because you can combine multiple parametric objects like that and inspect their results and do all kinds of really cool stuff with this. So I thought, I'll just go through some examples how bit by bit can be helpful. You see that we didn't create a lot of code here. We just scripted few things. And I get that you probably don't still understand many things that are happening here. But on the other hand, it's code that sort of speaks for itself in some ways. So I hope you at least get the point of why this is a cool and interesting way to learn to code. And another thing is that we will go to details that will be a bit more boring after this. So I hope you will not be very sleepy there when knowing what is the purpose of your learnings. So when you know that you can create some amazing things with the platform, then hopefully you'll get more inspiration to continue on through those more boring sections that will be explaining, what is the variable, what is the function, how we do that and that, how for loops work and stuff like that. So I hope you'll hang around, and let's see each other in the next videos. Cheers, guys.